Hello there, dear friends, and welcome once again to the Relaxed Fantasy Review. On this channel, we spend our time looking at fantasy of all sorts, from books to movies to video games, and applying the characters within into the tabletop game Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition. And today we're going to be looking at one of the favorite superheroes in all of comics, movies, and in all of nerddom. A very popular one indeed. The friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, Peter Parker himself. Spider-Man is a fan favorite for both his sassy attitude and his amazing skills, both in problem solving and investigation, fighting, his web slinging. He does a lot of really cool things. Building him into a D&D character may not be the easiest thing in the world, but I think we can pull it off. Let's have a look-see. Peter Parker, in most of the canon of the movies and the comic books, is a young adult, usually just out of college, so I made him 22 years old. He's about 5'10", weighs about 150 pounds, with blue eyes, white skin, and black hair. Now, as far as his race goes, I actually decided to make a tiny little bit of a homebrew race, and I made him a shifter. Shifter was a race that was introduced in the Eberron books, and there's a few different types of shifter, and one of their powers is that they can use their bonus action to shift into an animalistic form, granting them extra powers. But in this case, I made him a spider shifter, which basically I just kind of stole the Longstrider stats and made it so that instead of having to use an action, or bonus action rather, he's just always in his shifter form and always benefits from its power. His background is investigator, since he was a photographer for a newspaper and was quite a bit of a person who poked his nose around in places he wasn't necessarily supposed to go. And his alignment is chaotic good. No surprise there, that's just Spider-Man for you. But his stats are where he really shines. He has a 24 in strength, as a very strong superhuman creature, having seen to lift over 10 tons using his strength alone. And he is one of the most agile superheroes out there, with superhuman senses and reflexes that almost no one can catch him. I gave him a dexterity of 24 as well. His constitution's 18, he's pretty tough, with a resiliency beyond most people. And his intelligence is really high too. He is a certifiable genius, with an intelligence of 22. His wisdom is about 16, he's pretty good at strategy, and his charisma is 16, as a friendly superhero that the people love. Now, his saving throws, he has dexterity, intelligence, and wisdom as his saving throws. And he has quite a few skills, because it turns out that trying to figure out what class Spider-Man's going to be is tricky. I decided that based on his chaos-driven fighting and his sassy and charismatic nature, I was going to make him a rogue, and specifically a swashbuckler rogue. That might seem a little odd since you think of swashbucklers as being sword fighters, but many of their powers are based on hit-and-run tactics and taunting their enemies into duels and creating opportunities for them to use powerful attacks in direct melee combat, and this lines up really well with Spider-Man. It turns out none of the Swashbuckler's powers are reliant on them using weapons. They can just use their fists. So, we leaned into that particular archetype. His skills are acrobatics, athletics, insight, investigation, perception, sleight of hand, and stealth. And he has expertise in 4 of them: acrobatics, investigation, perception, and stealth. As Spider-Man is a very stealthy person. Most of his strategy comes around dropping in unannounced, and no one seems to see him coming. Now, he speaks common as well as thieves' can't, although that's more of a rogue feature than anything, wears light armor, and is skilled in simple weapons as well as hand crossbows, long swords, short swords, and rapiers, although he doesn't really use any of them. Except for hand crossbows, which we'll get to in a second. He is also proficient in thieves' tools and the disguise kit, again, not something he's ever really going to use. His speed is 50, thanks to both his natural spider shifter power as well as feat he's going to get. And his armor class is 19. He wears his spider suit, which is functionally light leather armor, and has a huge boost to his dex. And he has 175 hit points, being a level 18 character. But what about his equipment? His spider suit, like I said, functions as light leather armor, but I decided that for the functionality of D&D, I wanted his spider suit to be something that gave him powers. And there is thankfully a phenomenal item in the Dungeon Master's Guide, the Cloak of Arachnidia, which gives you the power to climb on walls just like a spider, and as well as magically use the web spell occasionally. And so I just said Spider-Man's spider suit is studded leather armor that functions as the Cloak of Arachnidia. It's a good mixture, and it makes a lot of sense for a D&D character who's trying to emulate Spider-Man. Now, he does have the unarmed fighting style from another feat he's going to get, so his fists are his main attack, but he also has his web shooters. Now, what on earth could web shooters be? Well, to me, web shooters are this. They're a pair of wrist-mounted hand crossbows that are grapple gun style, 150 foot with their range. Basically, their bolts fire cables out, and in this case, the cables just happen to be webbing. But they don't do damage. They can just stick to surfaces like grapple guns. That's what allows him to do his swinging. But if used as a weapon against a creature, they don't do damage. Instead, they simply, if they hit, and they have a plus 13 to hit in Spider-Man's hands, they then restrain enemies, similar to the web spell, except against a single foe. And they require a DC 20 strength check to break free, meaning that it's not impossible to break the webbing, but it's pretty hard once he's got you in his webs, which is exactly how you would imagine Spider-Man to be. As far as his features go, he does have sneak attack, a very powerful one too, an extra 96 on his hit. He can use cunning action to dash, disengage, and dodge as his bonus action. And he has uncanny dodge, which allows him to halve damage that he is hit with an attack. Evasion, which allows him to half AoE damage or completely avoid it if he succeeds his save, which he probably will a lot. He also has the reliable talent power, which gives him a really, really good skill check most of the time. He also has blind sense and the elusive mind feature, which makes it impossible to sneak up on this guy. He just has blind sight out to 10 feet, and the elusive power is effectively his spider sense. You can't gain advantage on Spider-Man. As long as he is conscious, he knows you're there, and his spider sense can track your movements incredibly accurately. He also gains dark vision from his race, and from his subclass, he gains the fancy footwork power, the rakish audacity power, the panache power, and the elegant maneuver power. These are things that make him the hit-and-run style fighter I was talking about, taunting his enemies, teasing them, using his chaotic personality and his charismatic words to just frustrate his enemies and make it so that he always has the upper hand in combat. Like I mentioned earlier, his feat gives him the fighting initiate fighting style. He also has the crusher fighting style. Since most of his power comes from his fists and his feet, those are bludgeoning weapons, which means that he can use the crusher feat to knock enemies around, something Spider-Man's well known for doing. He also has the mobile feat, which gives him some extra speed and maneuverability, which is perfect for him, and the skulker feat. This allows him to be a much better stealth artist, hiding in light obscurity, including dim lighting, as well as using his web slingers and making it so that he can't be seen when he fires them if he misses. This is something that is well known. If Spider-Man grabs somebody and pulls them away, no one seems to know where they went. It's kind of funny, but the Skulker feat feeds into that pretty well. All in all, Spider-Man is a quite powerful rogue. He doesn't need magic because it turns out all of his abilities don't work on any sort of spell slots or key points or any consumable. He can just use them all the time, dodging, evading, using his panache, using his elusive mind, and using all of these powers together in a package that is basically limitless. This is one superhero that is very, very strong, but not out of the question. As a level 18 hero, he would fit well in to a high-level party as an NPC ally that would be impossible to hit most of the time, and very, very good at playing both support and that loving, that charismatic, fiery, friendly superhero that we all know him as. Peter Parker, the Spider-Man, is a very valuable addition to a D&D table, and one I would highly recommend giving a try. This has been the Relaxed Fantasy Review. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe down below, and keep your eyes peeled for more character creation coming down the line soon. Have a good one, my friends.